everyone, my name is Lisa and I'm the Viet vegan because I'm Viet and I'm vegan, and I'm so happy to be able to participate in TVA's Veg Food Fest this year, especially with all the things that are going on. I've always been a part of TVA and it's been near and dear to my heart for a very long time. Today we're making a fire noodle dish with a chilled tofu salty side dish, which is like kind of acting as our protein, and we're gonna have some bubble tea for deliciousness. I don't know why this was the hand motion for bubble tea, but you know what? We're going with it. If you guys don't know who I am, my name is Lisa and I am the Viet Vegan. I have a YouTube channel and a food blog. I'm in Hamilton, Ontario, but I used to live in Toronto, and I first joined TVA when I first moved to Toronto, and TVA is the reason why I am vegan in the first place. Let's talk about TVA for a second. So if you guys aren't familiar with the Toronto Vegetarian Association, they are a nonprofit organization in Toronto that just aims to educate people on how to live a more compassionate and kind life by eating more plants instead of animals. They're based in Toronto. They have an amazing board of directors. They run a bunch of amazing events and things like the Veg Food Fest, which you're watching online today. Their outreach and their educational programs are the reason why I went vegan in the first place. So when I first moved to Toronto, I didn't really know anyone, and my strategy every time I move to a new place is that I start volunteering somewhere. I was vegetarian at the time, and I was only vegetarian for health. I wasn't really like focusing on the ethics of it, even though like that was something that in the back of my mind, but it was just convenient that I was vegetarian already. So when I first joined TVA, I met a bunch of people who were vegan, and they sort of debunked all these like misconceptions that I had about veganism, that it is easy. It's actually a really easy way to transition to a vegan diet, especially if you live in a place like Toronto or in a city like Hamilton that has lots of access to vegan products. There's so many resources online. There's just like so many reasons why you should go vegan. They were not forcing me at all. They were just very kind and encouraging of me making any changes that I felt I could do. With that sort of guidance and that education and all the different literature that they have to educate you on nutrition and ethics, I went vegan and never looked back. So that's like one of the reasons why I love TVA. I've been volunteering for them since 2013, I want to say. 2012, 2013. Now that I live in Hamilton, I don't volunteer as much just because it's a little bit further, but the resource center is very near and dear to my heart. So if you guys don't know much about TVA, please go follow them on Instagram, visit their location when things are cool and safe again, and check out their website, veg.ca, for all the information and blogs and podcasts and good times. I am a huge fan of TVA. I'm also a member of TVA, which is a $25 membership. It's all run on memberships. There's no profit or anything like that. It all just goes back to the events and the people running the program, so that you can have events like Veg Food Fest every single year, and Bake Off and Vegan Rock and etc. The organizers will leave a link down below for how to become a member. I got a little card that says I have like a discount card. That $25 goes back into TVA to run all the programs and fund all of the initiatives, and it's awesome because you get discounts on a bunch of different places, especially in Toronto. I don't even live in Toronto anymore, and I still have it because I go to this one restaurant called Zen Gardens, and they give you 10% off just from having the card, and I get my money's worth from that alone because I eat there a lot. I hope I've convinced you to join TVA because I'm a huge fan. And yeah, let's cook some delicious food. So if you guys don't know who I am a YouTuber, food blogger. I cook a lot of vegan food that would be the same sort of food that I would have eaten before I was vegan. So a lot of noodles, some junk food, some healthy food, you know, a bunch of everything. But the way that I approach vegan food is the same way I would have approached food if I weren't vegan. Today, I have a bunch of ingredients in front of me. I'm gonna run through some ingredients that you may not be familiar with, depending on how familiar you are with your Asian grocery store. And we're gonna have a good time and eat some delicious food. So let's get cooking. So over here, I have a pot of water that's boiling. I'm going to mix up a sauce with a bunch of fun ingredients. So here we have some gochugaru, which is like a Korean spicy pepper that's ground into a fine powder. That's what this is. Some gochugaru is made with like the flake of the pepper, and it isn't as finely milled as this. I prefer the powder, but you can use whatever you want. We have our pot of boiling water here. I'm gonna add a package of udon noodles. So these are just udon noodles. You can use whatever noodles you have. The recipe that I have on my website just uses like ramen noodles. I don't really have any right now, so we're using udon noodles. You can use whatever noodles you heckin' want. These are like already kind of cooked, so we're just kind of reheating them and sort of loosening them up. All right, our noodles are in. Okay, so I'm just gonna use these chopsticks to sort of like make sure everything's submerged. then we're good to go. Meanwhile, I'm going to mix up our ingredients for the sauce. So I'm gonna start with the gochugaru. This is kind of like where the fire and the fire noodles come from. This is how you get that vibrant orange color in the noodles. You can use less if you don't like it as spicy. I don't think this recipe is super, super spicy, but if you can't handle spice at all, maybe leave that ingredient out or use less of it. So I'm adding some gochugaru. This is fermented pepper paste. This is the same pepper as this powdered one, but it's been fermented and it's got this like really good, funky, spicy flavor. There are mild ones and then there's like a more spicy one. I'm just using like the regular mild one today. This is the base of like the main flavor. So we have some soy sauce as well. I'm just using tamari for this one to keep this gluten-free. Not that I have anything wrong with gluten. It's an option for you. So you're gonna mix this together to kind of get all the chunky bits like incorporated, and then the rest will be easier to incorporate. So I'm using here some sriracha. The most common sriracha apparently isn't vegan friendly because they use sugar that has been refined with bone char. So you can use whatever sriracha you have so that you don't have that issue. I'm also adding some toasted sesame oil for that good flavor. And then we have some mushroom broth powder. Now mushroom broth powder, if you're not familiar with, is basically like bouillon cube, but in a granulated form. This is really common in a lot of Vietnamese dishes. Typically they would use chicken. This is the fire noodle recipe that I've sort of like developed from the Samyang fire noodles that are like chicken flavor. From what I can tell, that ramen is actually vegan, but a lot of people aren't 100% sure or confident in the company admitting that it's vegan. So I created my own recipe so that you don't have to worry about any of that. I also have some brown sugar and cornstarch. The full measurements for this recipe will be on thevietvegan.com. I'll have the organizer's link to the recipe for you guys. So you just mix everything together so you get one sort of homogeneous paste. You're gonna take a 1/4 cup of the water from your cooking situation over here, and that's how you will dissolve the sauce. And everything will just dissolve really nicely because that water is nice and boiling, and you're gonna have this vibrant, super intense sauce. But don't worry, it looks a lot scarier than it is. All right, I'm gonna drain the noodles because it doesn't really take very long to cook them. I'm just gonna set them there for a second, and then I'm gonna put the sauce onto the hot element. I'm gonna turn the heat back on to like a low medium, and we're just gonna cook up this sauce so it gets kind of thickened and it'll darken a little bit too. There we go. It's getting nice and thick, which is great. The next thing I'm gonna add is some cheese for that good cheesy flavor. This is vegan chow cheese. It's made from like mostly coconut oil. This is my partner's favorite cheese. He is not super on board with a lot of vegan cheese alternatives, but he's into this one. So I'm just adding a slice of the original chow cheese, and then I'm just gonna melt that into the sauce. I probably should have cut it up a little bit more. Normally I just add this on top and microwave it, but I decided to ad-lib today. Why? I don't know. Maybe because I like chaos. All right, well, you know, that'll melt. It'll be fine. It's already kind of melting, so I just really like this cheesy flavor. It's like American processed cheese. It's not super like amazing, but we're gonna add the noodles here. You're just gonna mix everything together. So we have our plate ready to receive the noodles. I'm just gonna give this one little mix to kind of incorporate the cheese. Oh my God, these look so good. This is the first time I've ever made them with udon noodles, and they look amazing. This recipe serves one, mostly because whenever I make this, Eddie is never around, even though he very much likes this. Obviously, you can just double the ingredients if you wanna eat more. To top off these noodles, typically you would add some seaweed, some nori, or any of that kind of stuff. Well, we're not doing that today because it's a cheesy time. So I'm just gonna add some toasted sesame seeds. So that is the first dish. This is just noodles, but that's okay. We're gonna have some onion on top. And already that looks a lot more like wholesome and delicious, don't you think? I always find that adding greens or herbs or some sort of garnish makes everything look a little bit better. But yeah, we're gonna take this and put it aside because we're gonna make some more food. The next dish that I'm gonna make is going to be sort of our protein / deliciousness to eat alongside our noodles, which are just carbs and sauce. This is silken tofu that I find at the Asian grocery store. All these ingredients you can find at most Asian grocery stores. I bought this at Nations, Oceans, smaller shops that are in Chinatown and Toronto. Like, that's where I find most of these. I think the hardest thing you will probably have to find is this. This might be the most challenging, but the vegan cheese, the chow cheese, you'll find at like a more traditionally American or Canadian type store. We're gonna slice into this, and I'm just gonna drain some of the water over here. This is the tofu. It's very silken, very soft, and very delicate, which makes it all more delicious. So I'm just gonna drain it slightly here, just because there's like a little bit of liquid in the tube. And because tofu is cooked anyway, this is not like raw tofu, it's just cold tofu. So you have our 2 logs of tofu. I got this recipe idea from Liz Mew. She is another vegan food blogger, and her background is Malaysian/Chinese, and she has some epic delicious food that is so good. I wasn't originally going to put this recipe in the video, but I wanted some protein, and I've just been obsessed with this tofu dish lately that I can't help but make it all the time. I've been buying this tofu specifically just so I can eat this dish. So we're gonna add some Maggi. It is just the soy sauce. You can add any regular soy sauce you want. So you're probably gonna add like 1 to 2 tablespoons of soy sauce on there. I know it looks like it's gonna be a lot, but that's okay. We're gonna add a little bit of toasted sesame seed oil. Just a little bit, not a lot. That was probably a little too much, but that's fine. Then we're gonna add a bit of this chili sambal. If you guys live in Toronto or have a way to get to Toronto, my favorite restaurant that is vegan friendly is Sue's in Toronto, and it's run by a family that has a vegan daughter and a vegan son, well, son-in-law. They make some of the most delicious vegan Asian food that I've ever had in my entire life. It's Malaysian cuisine, and it's like street food style, but like elevated. It's so good. Anyway, they're the ones that make this chili oil that I definitely put too much of on, because that is going to be a spicy time. Now that is totally just optional. You don't need to do that. I am going to add some green onion on top. I had cut both green and whites of the onion, but looking back, I really just want the greens. So we're gonna add a bunch of green onion, because that crunchy freshness is just too dang good, you know what I'm saying? Look at that. That looks delicious already. And then we're gonna add a little bit of white pepper. White pepper is a little bit different from black pepper, and that's like a bit sweeter. And then I'm gonna add some toasted sesame seeds for that crunchy goodness. You know what? I'm gonna add a little bit more soy sauce. Look at that. That is just delicious looking. I want to eat that right now, but I can't yet because we have one more thing that we need to make. So I'm gonna put that on the side here. The last thing we're gonna make is some bubble tea. Now, if you've never had bubble tea before, think of it as a sweet, refreshing drink that is like iced tea, but creamy and delicious, and has little balls of tapioca for a little bit of chew and extra flavor. So I'm gonna show you how to make that at home. Now, luckily in 2020, we have a lot of places like Cha Time that have oat milk as an option for milk tea, which is kind of incredible. But that wasn't a thing very often, and because I want to keep it low waste here, I'm all about that sustainability, one of the reasons why I'm vegan. We're gonna make our own bubble tea at home. So I have this 5-minute boba. It's pretty good. I like it a lot. It cooks up boba within like less than 5 minutes. That's what it says, ready in 5 minutes. I like a lot of bubbles, so I'm gonna measure out like a 1/3 cup over here. So these are the tapioca pearls. There's other versions of inclusions that you can add into your bubble tea. You can also omit it completely. We're gonna bring a pot of water to a boil over here, and I also have some sugar. I would say like a normal person would probably want a 1/4 cup of tapioca pearls. I am not a normal person. We're gonna boil some water. We're gonna brew some tea. Okay, so we're gonna make 1 tablespoon of tea. So I'm gonna add that to here. And we're gonna brew us some strong, actually, you know what? I'm gonna do 2 tablespoons of tea, because we have 2 tablespoons of tea in here. This is some Ceylon black tea. It's Hong Kong style tea. I don't really know what the difference is, but any black tea will do. I found this at the Asian grocery store and I was like, I'm interested. And the flavor is very reminiscent of the flavor of the tea that I had of milk tea when I went to Vietnam and had this like milk bubble tea. So if you guys aren't aware, bubble tea originates from Taiwan, actually, as a lot of fun, delicious Asian desserts do. So we're gonna set a timer for, I guess, 1.5 minutes. On the instructions, it says 1 tablespoon of tea per cup. Oh, wow, I am so good. That's perfect. That's exactly what I'm doing. So we have our tea happening here. I'm gonna set that aside. Over here, we've got our tapioca pearls, and we're gonna add them to the water now that it's boiling. We're gonna use the same chopsticks that I use for the udon noodles and just sort of mix them around, you know? These tapioca pearls are almost ready, and then I'm going to strain the tea. So I'm using a coffee filter. It is a pretty fine tea, so unless you have like a If you're confident in your tea bag type situation, then use that. But I'm just gonna use a coffee filter. Making a bit of a mess, but it's fine. All right, we're gonna drain these tapioca pearls because they're ready to go. And then now that they're all drained, we're gonna put them back in the pot. A tablespoon of sugar and about a tablespoon of water. Now we're ready to assemble the bubble tea. We have our tea all brewed here. So this is the bubble tea jar that I'm gonna use. I'm gonna put my bubbles in there and they're gonna be kind of hot. I do not recommend making a ton of bubbles ahead of time because when they are chilled, they get really hard and gross. I've lost a bunch of the sugar syrup or whatever in the pot, which is why I used a tablespoon. So don't worry about it too much, not a big deal. So we have our bubbles in our jar. This is my jar from Zero Waste Bulk, which is a vegan run store. They do have some non-vegan ingredients in there, but it is mostly vegan. We're gonna add a bunch of ice cubes. All right, so we've got our ice cubes. I've got like 8 ice cubes in there because I like it really icy. So we have our tea brewed. We're gonna pour that in. And then we're gonna add the magic ingredient, which is silk soy milk. There's also oat milk and stuff from other brands. Use whatever you want, but this is the coffee creamer that I like that is nice and sweet and creamy. This may look like an incredible amount of cream, but that's okay. Because it is a lot of tea. Okay, I definitely put in too much. But you know what, that's fine. So we're gonna have a little sip. Oh my God, it's so good. Not too sweet. I'm gonna add a little bit more tea to offset the amount of soy creamer that I put in. I got a little overzealous. All right, and I have a little lid. There we have bubble tea at home. So delicious. A little shout out to Zero Waste Bulk because they have so many vegan items that are plastic free at their shop. Oh my God, yes. That is so much tea. It is currently 3:30 and I'm gonna be jazzed later. Now that everything is all cooked, it's time to eat it. Okay, well, let's have a little taste of this. What an awful sound, but sounds so delicious at the same time. So as I said, these noodles are based off of the chicken fire noodles by Samyang. From the company, they said that it's vegan friendly because there's no actual chicken, it's artificial chicken. But if you are unsure, just make this recipe and you have basically the same thing. Plus the cheese, it's so good. Oh wow, these are really good with udon noodles. Oh my God. All right, time to eat these. So it's pretty delicate, so I like to eat it with a spoon. We get a bit of the sauce. We have a little bit of tofu. Got all the toppings, the crunchy sesame seeds, a little bit of white pepper. Oh my God, what a good time. So this recipe is inspired and basically from Liz Mew. So good. And milk bubble tea, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this little cooking demo. All these ingredients you can find at either your regular Canadian grocery store or an Asian food market, which is where I get everything from. If you have any questions, feel free to message me on Instagram. Send me an email, lisa@thevietvegan.com. I'm The Viet Vegan everywhere: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter, although I don't really check Twitter that often. So basically just follow me on Instagram and on YouTube because those are my main squeezes. Definitely sign up to be a part of TVA. They run so many amazing programs and they turn people vegan like me. I'm having a great time making food, sharing food with you, showing you how to veganize some delicious, delicious foods. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you TVA for having me a part of this year's Veg Food Fest online, virtually. It's been a good time. I'm gonna go eat this. I'll try to answer any comments down below if you guys have any questions about certain ingredients that you can't find. Thank you so much for watching and I hope you guys have a delicious day.